Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm a health writer and wellness and well-being educator. And today I want to talk to you about a new definition of forgiveness that I think is awesome, and also a process for doing forgiveness work. And I'm really excited about this because there's just not enough teaching and information in our culture around it. And Mary Hayes Greco has this beautiful method that is really practical and tangible, and it kind of gets at all the pieces. And so I get excited about sharing it. And Mary's definition of forgiveness is releasing an expectation that is causing you to suffer. So just you can stop and think about that for a minute in light of any issues that are, that you might be upset about or having, past resentments about, and think about what was my expectation there. Mary would say that your expectations can be really reasonable and healthy. Nonetheless, when we're holding on to an expectation about something that's already happened, or as an ongoing issue that, we can't change, then we're just really causing our own selves more suffering. And so that's really what Mary's method is about. She sometimes calls it 8 steps of freedom, because it's about self-healing and about feeling better, both emotionally and also physically. Forgiveness and our physical health can really be linked, and we can feel lighter and more energy, and just in better spirits when we're able to kind of work through methodically to let things go. And so one of the things that I really like about Mary's method is that it kind of addresses all the levels of that we need to sort of speak our truths with. So like our bodies are storing emotion, for example, and when unless you're very fortunate, most of us aren't necessarily taught how to work with emotions, how to deal with them skillfully and move them through our bodies and minds and out. And so what happens then is many of us are holding these layers and layers and layers of repressed and suppressed emotions. And that's really uncomfortable and quite literally heavy. And it ends up, you can't just stuff emotions and pretend they're not there. At some point, it might be years and decades later, but it does come out. And so when we can learn to work skillfully with our emotions and let them have their truth, then we, get on a better path a lot sooner. And so Mary's method really addresses how to get the emotions out of your body, how to think about and process through what were the expectations in your mind, kind of what's going on in your intellect about what happened, and being able to sort of speak that truth, and also going through like the spiritual elements of forgiveness. And so it really has all the pieces. And Mary's process takes place, in her book, it shows an empty chair, because what you do is you set out an empty chair and you pretend basically the person or the organization or institution, whatever the situation you need to forgive, is in the chair. And then you are kind of speaking your truths to that chair. And so you don't actually have to have necessarily the other person involved. So Mary would say you can go through this process and, create that healing for yourself and that release for yourself. And then later you may decide that there's some conversation that needs to happen. And that's fine, but that will go probably quite a bit smoother if you let your emotions speak their full truth, to the chair. Or in some cases with a therapist or counselor or spiritual director at your side to support you through the process, because it could be quite an emotional process. And so one of the things that Mary talks about in her book, forgiveness is not about forgetting something happened, excusing it, saying it's okay if it isn't okay, being a doormat or open to further abuse, reconciling, not necessarily, giving up, or finding justice. So these are some of the reasons that we might resist forgiveness. But it's not any of those things. It's really about addressing your emotional truth and finding ways to kind of release that and then move forward with a healthy boundary. And so This is Mary's book that I highly recommend, Unconditional Forgiveness, a simple and proven method to forgive everyone and everything. You can get it at, pretty much anywhere books are sold, and also at the library. So this is from my library. And funny story about this book, when I realized I didn't have it anymore, because many years ago, I bought like 20 or 25 copies of this book. I was so impressed with Mary's method and thought it's so important, and such an under, I guess, just it's a topic. Forgiveness is that there's just not enough information about how to do it and how to really do it in a proper and healthy way and thorough way and stuff like that. So this was before I had a house and mother of children, and so I was really excited to just like buy a bunch of books and give them to my friends and my family. So I did that, and then I guess I gave all my books away. But I found this at the library, and I do reference it. So I'm just gonna go through. Actually, before I go through the steps, I also want to say that the other side of forgiveness, Mary will point out, is that we often need to do self-forgiveness as well. We're human beings, and we often hold shame around things, even if they are really truly 100% not our fault. We know, even for example, children who were abused, they clearly were the victim, but they will likely have shame and guilt around what happened, even though someone older or with more power or control was causing the problem. But that's just something that happens, and so we need to make sure we work through the self-forgiveness too, and Mary has a process for that as well. And so here are the steps that Mary calls the 8 steps to freedom. And before you start, you really are preparing to make a change in your life and saying, kind of like, I'm done with this story. I'm done holding on to this hurt. I want to move forward and shift it. And so step 1 is just stating your will to make a change. It's like you're ready, you're on board. Sometimes you might have to do more, a decent amount of emotional processing to get to that point where you're really ready, especially if it's a big thing. And Mary would say you need to sometimes break up a big thing into smaller pieces and kind of work through them one at a time. Number 2, express your feelings exactly as they are inside of you. So this is giving yourself full permission to let that out, because it is all inside of there. And when we can release it without holding back, and again, the person is not actually in front of you, so you're not you're not just like spewing all your emotional pain actually at someone. That's not usually constructive. You're just letting it out of your body in a safe and healthy and intentional way. And then step 3 is releasing the expectations from your mind one by one. So here we're addressing on the, intellectual level, what was I expecting, or what do I expect? These can be really reasonable, healthy expectations, but the fact is they're not being met. Step 4 is restoring your boundaries. Super important, and a topic that boundaries as a topic is something I hope to do another video about in the future. Mary has great teachings about boundaries, and talks about that a little bit in the book. But that's kind of being able to separate you and the person of like, this is you and your life, this is me and my life. We don't have to be all entangled in unhealthy ways. And just creating that healthy separation of who's who and that sort of thing. Step 5 is you open up to the universe to get your needs met in a different way. And step 6 is receive spirit's healing energy into your personality. And that you can just replace the word spirit with whatever works for you, God or higher power, whatever else. Step 7 is you send unconditional love to the other person, release him or her. The step 8 is see the good in the person or situation. So you kind of think through, how have I grown as a person, or what have I learned, or what's one good thing I can think about this person. And the bar can be really low for that. And then you kind of give some time to integrate that change and process it, and then go on living your life in a more lighter and freer way. And so the book, again, I highly recommend. And then other supports would be Mary's podcasts, which are awesome. really great insights and tips and tools. Mary's a great storyteller. She's funny. So she makes you laugh while talking about this really meaningful, helpful life stuff. And so the current one that she's still coming out with new episodes is Rise and Thrive. And then also she has the Life Gets Better Now podcast. So you can access both of those from her website, or, just search them up and listen to them. So here's her website, maryhayesgreco.com. And I really encourage everybody. I talk to my friends about those podcasts all the time, because whenever we're talking about something in life, it seems like there's inevitably a great skill or tool that Mary has that correlates to that, that can be really helpful. So yeah, I think that's about it. I guess I want to say a little bit more about the boundaries piece. When Mary talks about restoring boundaries, she would say, for example, you can forgive your boss and still leave your job. You can forgive a friend and still end the friendship. In some cases, that is the healthy thing to do. You don't have to subject yourself to continuing to be mistreated by a person or situation. And in other times, you may forgive the person and then want to have a conversation about how can things shift going forward. So it's really about using your own discernment. Sorry about that, my dinner's almost done. Using your own discernment around what your next steps are, like after you've gone through the process. So I wish you well and hope that you'll check it out. I have found it really powerful myself, and I've seen so many people's lives transformed. I've been to a lot of Mary's workshops, and so I just think it's a huge gift that you give yourself when you invest in doing this, whether it's through the book, listening to Mary's podcast, or if you could travel to Minneapolis, going to some of those, or even working with her online. So sometimes I say people probably think I'm secretly in marketing for people like Mary Hayes Greco, but I'm not. I actually just adore her and her methods and found them to be super helpful. So best wishes to you. And if you like this kind of content or find it helpful, I hope that you'll subscribe and tell friends that you think might benefit from it as well. And you can also see some more information on my website, which is sarahlynmoran.org. Thank you for joining me. Bye.